I will be your mistress of ceremonies for this afternoon's event. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Joining me also today is the ERDC Director, Dr. David Pittman, and our Deputy Director, Dr. Beth Fleming. At this time, I'd like to turn the podium over to Dr. Fleming to recognize our special guest in the audience today.
Good afternoon. Y'all had lunch and now you've gone to sleep. No, we are so excited to have everybody here today and have the opportunity to recognize two wonderful people who made fabulous contributions to the ERDC. And we are just so delighted to be here. So let me start by recognizing some very special people in the crowd. We have former directors, ERDC directors, WES directors. We also have laboratory directors in the audience, including Mr. Gary Bloom, Dr. Joe Corvo, Mr. David Bart Durst, Dr. David Horner, Mr. Edmund Russo, Dr. Edmund Russo. I got to get the doctors and the misters right. Let me look at them to make sure I'm getting them right. Dr. Ty Wamsley, and Dr. Andy Nelson. Some people are joining us virtually, so not everybody, as you're looking around the room, is here. We have a virtual crowd out there as well. And finally, a special welcome to any members of the WES Gallery of Distinguished Employees and ERDC retirees joining us, and you'll be recognized again in just a little bit. But the most important people in the room are our inductees and their families. We are so glad to have you here, and as you give your remarks, we'll ask you to introduce everybody that you would like to and any special guests that you would like to. As you think about and listen to the accomplishments of both of our inductees, I want to tell you a little bit about what hit home to me that they have in common. They're very different. They come from different parts of the organization and made different types of contributions, and you're going to hear about those. But there are very much have things in common. And so I thought about what are those things that I wanted to share with you that you may or may not be aware of, particularly his family. I know when family comes to ceremonies like this, they're always surprised. You mean he did that or she did that? Yes, and it's extremely important. They both, to me, exhibit strong characteristics of personal courage. And what I mean by that is if you think about what each of them contributed, it took a lot of personal courage to stand up and stand on the line and do that. So I think about Mr. McGee, Mr. Howard McGee sitting right before me. I know that when you go on field trips and go out there and you take all this equipment and you do all these things out there to make a project successful, it's almost like planning a wedding, if you've ever been involved with that. It takes months of preparation. And you try to think of every possible thing that you're going to need, and you get there and something's missing. Well, you're the go-to person that has to go try and get that together, either find the equipment or do something alternative to make it work. And amongst all of that, you have all these dignitaries and people start coming in and breathing down your neck and everything better work right. And he's laughing and smiling. I'm bringing back memories, I know. So you're not only have personal courage, but you're a can-do person who finishes things. And I greatly admire that, and I know everybody in the audience does as well. And that makes a huge difference. Then we have Dr. Tracy. Dr. Tracy, I have stood on the line with you under fire, and I know that you have personal courage. See, he didn't even remember. He stands on the line every day. Vegetation on levees. And we were getting ourselves beat up one side and down the other, and it was not a pretty sight. Dr. Tracy, excuse me, never faltered, never skipped a beat. He was on it, and TV cameras and all kind of things were all over the audience. People were angry, at every meeting we went to. People had an opinion. And I really appreciate all the times, and I know everybody in the audience does, that you've stood alongside people like Mr. McGee and Dr. Tracy, who you know will deliver and know have your back. And I just want to say that so that everybody understands the contributions of the two people we're about to recognize. I was coming in here, and everything to me is on music. And some people are shuddering. They're afraid I'm about to do something. I'm not. Relax. But I was coming in today and from lunch, and the song on the radio was Taking Care of Business by Bachman Turner Overdrive. So that's what these two people do. They take care of business, and we're here to celebrate that today. So, Dr. Pittman, please join me.
Well, hello, everybody. I need to pull the mic down a little bit, I think. So we're on virtual world out there, and we have a lot of people here in the room. So good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? Is everybody awake yet? You awake? So what a fabulous day this is today. It's an exciting day for all of us today, but especially for two honorees who are some of the top people in the history of the Waterways Experiment Station and ERDC. And so we're so proud to honor them today. As Beth was talking about her personal reflections on them, I'm going to share a little bit with you as well. And it's so good, by the way, to see faces out there. Like we've all kind of been stuck in our houses for months and over a year for a lot of us, and it's good to kind of get out and actually see a lot of faces. So, so we're here today, obviously, to honor the legacies of two special folks in helping us do every day what we say at ERDC we do. We discover, develop, and deliver new ways to make the world safer and better every day. And these two gentlemen represent that to the max. So we're going to honor the career accomplishments and legacies of these two individuals by putting them in a category that we call the WES Gallery of Distinguished Civilian Employees. Basically, it's the Waterways Experiment Station Hall of Fame. It's the best of best that we have. So I told them as I walked in today, so Howard's going to be number 111 on the wall. Y'all know where the wall is. Y'all hadn't seen the wall yet in the brand new ERDC headquarters building. So we have these pictures, and it'll be on the wall. Howard's going to be number 111. Now think about that. We've been in place for 90-something years. How many people have crossed the threshold, that gate out there at the Waterways Experiment Station? And of the thousands and thousands of people that have worked here, you're going to be number 111, and you're going to be number 112. Isn't that fantastic? Well, that gives me chills. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it does for you. So these two obviously have helped pave the way for really all of us, and set the standard and the example, as Dr. Fleming was talking about, for all of us, and the example for all of us in what they've done. And together, so I did a little math today, so you're going to hear about their histories here in just a second, but I added up their career experience, just their federal government experience is over 80 years combined federal experience. But guess what? They retired but didn't quit. They still coming to work. Fred still walks to work every day. And I just saw Howard in Fort Polk a few months ago. He's still working with us, okay? So if you add up all that time together, it's over 90 years together of total service. And the Waterways Experiment Station is only 92 years old. So they got more combined experience than the life of the Waterways Experiment Station here. So just tremendous experience. So before we get started, though, I want to play just a short little video clip of both of them, some memories that we want to share with you about their journey. So y'all want to roll the video? Isn't that so nice? And so y'all are of the age that you don't cringe quite as bad when you see those family pictures get up there. And thank y'all for sharing. I know we got those from a lot of folks in the audience, so thank y'all for sharing those nice memories with us. So we have a lot of other folks that have been recognized. Like I said, you're number 111, you're number 112, but we've had 110 before that, and some of them are actually in the room today. So in any former or present, former inductees, but present gallery members, would y'all please rise just a second so we can recognize you? I see at least two sitting over there. There's oh, goodness, yeah, there's a lot. 4. They have already set the standard of excellence for all of us, and we thank y'all for being here today. So I want to also echo the welcome to our guests and the family members, because we all know who's behind each one of these gentlemen, and they'll probably repeat that here in just a second. So for every day he spends out in the field, there's days and people out there that are sacrificing so they can do what they get to do every day. So thank y'all on behalf of all of us, the family and friends out there that have supported them throughout the years. Let's give y'all a hand too. So Howard and Fred's full list of amazing career accomplishments are actually in that program. Have y'all had that program? I'm not going to read the whole program to you today, but that's a beautiful program, by the way. And we have a wonderful staff back here that have put all this together and made it very special for y'all. But I'm not going to read all the accomplishments in the program, but I am going to mention some of them to you as I introduce them up here on the stage. So I'm going to start with our first gallery inductee of the day, number 111 on the WES history list, Mr. Howard McGee Jr. So Howard has had an impressive 36-year career and retired from the Geotech and Structures Laboratory back in 2013. Now, he retired, but he didn't quit. He's still working with us. But he began his federal career back in 1977. And Howard, I was in the 10th grade that year. So you've been here longer than I have. And he was a laborer in the old Weapons Effects Laboratory, which is sort of a predecessor to the Structures Lab and then the Geotech and Structures Lab as we know it today. In 1980, you were promoted to a civil engineering technician, right? And he has served as a subject matter expert in explosive materials and blasting operations. That's a fancy way of saying that he knows how to blow stuff up better than just about anybody in the world, and I'm serious. Those bags of things that y'all saw, those weren't sacks of potatoes, okay? Those were things that could blow things up, like seriously. So he's one of the lead experts of blowing things up in the world. He's led experiments that evaluated the modular protective systems against improvised explosive devices, both vehicle and personnel borne. He's also led experiments critical for the development of the field expedient non-lethal vehicle arresting barrier and the modular protective systems multi-purpose guard towers. Those have been deployed all over the theater and even here some in the United States. He has saved so many lives. We can't even count how many lives that Howard has saved, helped save. So these technologies have been patented by ERDC and are still providing protection around the world for the warfighter and the nation to this day. So his outstanding contributions to the warfighter go on and on and on, and you can see it in the program. So no doubt he impacted both the ERDC, the Corps of Engineers, the Army, and this nation. So with that very brief introduction, Howard, would you please join me on the stage right over here? We're going to unveil the portrait, and then I'm going to give you a little something after that.
What a day. I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank those individuals that had enough faith in me to even give me this great honor. I can't say thank you enough. And you know, this is really a profound moment for me in that how I got started. I came to ERDC with just a high school diploma and a military background. And from there, I was able to work my way up. I want to thank my family for being here. Let me introduce my family. My mother, she's out front. That is my youngest son back there, laid back, cool. And his daughter. My brother sitting there. And I have my two sisters and their husbands. Needless to say, I don't want to forget my cousin sitting back there in the back trying to hide. We went in the military together. But yeah, this This award would not mean anything to me. You know, the reason I got it is because of all of the great people that I work with. And I just want to take my hats off to them. But thank you again, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that was wonderful. Thank you, Howard. Appreciate that so much, sir. We're going to get more pictures at the end, so don't worry about that. Okay, so our second inductee of the day in the number 112th edition to the West Gallery Distinguished Employees is Dr. Freya T. Tracy. So Fred retired from the Information Technology Lab after, guess how many years? Federal service, by the way. 47 years of federal service. Man. So, but he started his career in 1969. And guess how he started? I just heard the story. So Dr. Whalen found him at the University of Kentucky. Dr. Whalen was up there for some reason, recruiting, I believe. And he found Fred, and he saw his GPA, his resume, transcript, 4.0, 4.0, 4.0, and he said, that was an easy decision. You're going to work at the Waterways Experiment Station. So that was a fateful day, sir. That was a fateful day, and Dr. Whalen sitting right there, right behind him. So thank you, Dr. Whalen, for bringing Fred to the team a long time ago. So he started in 1969, but just like Howard, you know, he retired but didn't quit. He has a trail, seriously, along the road out here that he walks from his house right beside Beth, that he walks every day and walks into work. And just because he retired doesn't mean he didn't stop walking that every day. So he has kept it going. And thank you, Fred, for continuing your service to this nation through the ERDC. So throughout the early 1980s, Dr. Tracy traveled to districts and divisions across the nation, teaching engineers how to use two-dimensional grid generation, element seepage, and post-processor programs. That sounds pretty tough to me. He created the SEEP 2D program, which became part of the groundwater modeling system, which is used across the nation and really around the world by the Corps of Engineers and professionals around the world. In 1991, he set history. Fred earned the first PhD in computational engineering from Mississippi State University. How about that? And that. So he co-authored the report Transient Seepage Analysis in Levee Engineering Practice, which is expected to be and is a founding work to be referenced long into the future. So he's setting the standard for generations. He has authored approximately 100 journal papers, book chapters, periodicals, magazine articles, and reports. A lot of writing out there. And his groundbreaking work in the fields of physics and computational engineering will remain a vital part of this organization's history for decades to come. So, Dr. Tracy, would you please join me on the stage and at the podium?
It was about 4 months ago. The first operation I ever had. I was in the recovery room. my daughter Lisa had my phone. And I get this call. I'm just waking up, and as soon as I wake up, they're going to throw me out. It's supposedly minor. A couple of days I could walk outside, no problem. I get this, Lisa goes, our daughter Lisa, this call from David Pittman. Whoa. All right, so my voice, because they had a tube stuck down my throat, for an hour and a half, it sounded like a frog had got stepped on. But I said, I better check into this. Thank you, Dr. Pittman, for giving me the phone call to tell me, Fred, I wanted you to be the first to know. So that day went from being kind of rough to remarkable. Dr. Pittman has such a personal, warm, caring touch. Now, for those people who are not ERDC employees, this guy is the director, you might have missed it, of the entire Waterways experiment station, plus a bunch of other facilities around the country. And he called me up. So thank you very much. A few years ago, one of my buddies was going to introduce me to his wife. Now, he could have said, this is Dr. Freya Tracy, who received the first PhD in computational engineering from Mississippi State University. That's not what he said. He said, you know that guy walks along the fence all the time? That's him. So I'm absolutely stunned and grateful and honored by this award. Deputy Director, you might have missed it. Deputy Director of ERDC, Dr. Beth Fleming, has always been so encouraging to me. It's just wonderful to have the leadership that we have here at ERDC. Dr. David Horner, who did a remarkable email sent to the entire lab about me. My goodness. Miss Patty Dewey, Deputy Director of ITL, was very supportive. She said, Fred, we can't forget about you. Dr. Jerry Ballard was so helpful. Dr. Reen Corcoran, Diane Martin, preparing the stuff that needed to be done. All of this support. And boy, I drove Amanda Yoakum kind of nuts. Every other day I'd pop in there and go, I got me one more question. Well, she was very helpful. So I can't stand here and say, look at what I've done. But before I get into that, let me talk about one. So I'm swapping stuff out. Thank you for all my friends and those that supported me, who could come and who didn't come because they couldn't. Those who have prayed for me over the years, thank you very much. But there's one person who deserves special recognition. Her name is Barbara Tracy. Over 50 years ago, she was living in this nice neighborhood, Bedminster, Pennsylvania, just a little small town. Everybody knew everybody. She was a suburb of Philadelphia and other places. But she decided to come to Mississippi with me. So our first trip down, there were a bunch of pigs in the road. So this is very good. Okay, so we got through that. After a couple, oh, shoot, I'm gonna have to swap myself out again. Our daughter, Lisa, there's no sense in me writing stuff down. Our daughter, Lisa, and her friend, Jesse, and our grandson, Jackson, came over from Dallas. So Lisa and Jesse both work in different Dallas hospitals. As people got sick on the inside and outside. And our grandson, fine young man, he loves trucks. And he works at Home Depot. And you know what cool thing he did? He says, Grandpa, what do you need to fix? Can you imagine somebody coming to see you and fixing stuff? That is just cool. All right. Back to Barbara. So in a couple of years, we buy this house. For 6 months, this is Belmead subdivision, this is 0.7 of a mile from here. For 6 months, there was these wild cows that left pockmarks in our front yard all the time. Now, they finally caught them and ate them. This is good. Now, Barbara's parents decided to come see us. Lived in Pennsylvania. I think it was early spring sometime. Okay, I have this distinct memory of them getting out of the car downtown Vicksburg and sweat popping out on their face. But that was just the beginning. In those days, there were a few years when you went outside, the horseflies would jump all over you. So there's my father-in-law, sweating big time, horseflies all over him. And Barbara decided to come with me anyhow. Now, her parents were very kind and very nice, but you know they wondered, what kind of place did you bring my daughter to? So I appreciate all of you. But I can't just stand here and say, look what I have done. I have to stand here and say, look how I've been blessed. So I was born without my hand. And my mama was devastated, my parents. But the doctor told her, when God leaves something out, he adds something else. So I went to this one-room schoolhouse. I was 5. Now, I don't know anybody else that had a hogger pen built for them, but a little hyper. My mama built me a hogger pen and put me in it every now and then. So she sent me to this one-room schoolhouse where this lady who raised hogs was my teacher, grades 1 through 6. Somebody there, I couldn't see the board, because taught me how to add and subtract and multiply at 5 years old. They discovered the real problem, that I had, my vision was really, really bad. And they want to put me in a school for the blind. Did this just happen by accident? Or was it a blessing? They looked at me, they shut down the one-room school and sent me to the city school. City was 600 population. But when they discovered what I was taught by the hog farmer and the buddies, they didn't put me in a school for the blind. They put me in the 2nd grade. Skipped a grade. So I went through school. I didn't know I was supposed to be able to see the board. You're supposed to see the board when you go to school? Is that something you need to do? Well, I didn't do that. So I managed to go to Murray State University. It's hard on my parents. It was. My mama taking me to the grocery store with one hand wasn't so easy. My daddy taking me to wherever, to the Union Hall, wasn't so easy. So I'm graduating in the summer. And the first thing that the dean of the college, first year it was a university, said, "Will Fred Thomas Tracy please stand up?" My parents, and I knew I was going to bawl, by the way. My parents were so thrilled that day. And that's a special blessing. Because I pretty well moved out after then, went on to graduate school, and my vision was getting better. And I was in University of Kentucky, having a nice day trying to work those physics problems. One day I was walking downtown. So, they keep telling me my eyes are good, but I just can't see things. I walked into the first eye doctor I saw. And yes, I had lost almost all of my vision. And I was legally blind. I became devastated. Dropped out of school with a master's degree. And about that time, Dr. Whalen come rolling in there. Louis Reno. Louis Reno goes, "Dr. Whalen, you going to hire this guy? He can't see very good." Dr. Whalen said, "I'm hiring him for his mind, not his eyes." That was a big deal to me. That was a special blessing. I can't take credit for these things. So when I show up, and this guy walks in and says he's working on this numerical problem for months, can't figure it out. Just happened to see, that's a nice little algebra. Just happened, you see stuff. That's a nice little algebra problem. I can give you an algebraic answer. Oh, no, don't, please. Let's work on it and fail some more. No, just give me a couple of days. I can't take credit for this guy walking in. I can't take credit for seeing the solution. You try it the hard way, one way, and you get tangled up. Another way, it's a nice little algebra problem. And so on. And so, about that time, Dr. Naraswamy Radhakrishnan shows up. And he and Paul Center. Dr. Radha was brilliant. And I don't know what all he and Dr. Whalen did and got into, what kind of deals they did, but you have to ask him. But Radha was a marvelous person to do all these cool projects. One of them, so when you do, and so he got me into doing this seepage program, finite element seepage program. If you break the problem into little bitty triangles and rectangles and stuff, you can solve it. Big hard problems, you can use PCs for little problems and high performance computing for big ones. So I thought, oh, and I had the job of doing a little program to generate these meshes, and then run it, and then a post-processor to look at the results. I said, why don't I put this into a conference? Special interest group graphics. I just mailed it off. Back then, what's this, all this stuff to see if you can go to a conference and stuff? I just mailed it off. My supervisor and a bunch of us were sitting at coffee break. Look, this is a nice conference. Why don't somebody go? And then he noticed, Freya Tracy is on the program. Why don't we send Freya? Now, I didn't know till many years later that this guy comes up to me, Fred, did you know that algorithm that you wrote to generate that mesh is a founding paper that created a whole class of numerical generation for 3D finite element meshes? Didn't have a clue. So I just happened to find out that was just pretty cool. Did it just happen? It doesn't feel that good to me. I have to say thank you, God, for these special blessings. And on it goes. 20 years later, I said, I've got unfinished business. I'm going back to school. Paul Center went in there. So for ERDC to send you back to school with a salary, everybody just doesn't get to do that. So they asked Paul Center, Paul, Fred can't see good. You think we ought to send him off to school, Mississippi State? Paul says, I know he can't see good, but he can do it. So our daughter Lisa was in Southern. She was at home in Vicksburg, and I was in Starkville, Mississippi. I'd caught Greyhound buses for a year. Every Sunday night, Barb would drop me off. Every Friday, I'd drag my suitcase 2 miles to the bus station and jump on that bus. While I was up there, I did special projects class. I was going to write up some stuff that I did with Dr. Rada and his marvelous, innovative projects. So I'm going to write up this stuff on structural engineering, computer-aided structural engineering, and submit it to Concrete International magazine. My professor laughed in my face. He said, they won't take that. Turns out, it was featured on the front cover of Concrete International magazine. And I had to go to my professor, because this is an article that needs pictures. I had to go to my professor and say, we need your picture. How come? Because we need pictures to go with this article. So that was a good start at Mississippi State. I was in a hall one day, kept hearing about this engineering research program and the new program in new PhD program in computational engineering. Wow, it's cool. I saw the guy at that time, Dr. Joe Thompson. He says, do you think these classes I've been taking will apply to that new program? And he looks at it, because I did all computational stuff. And he goes, I think they do, Fred. That allowed me to be in the right place at the right time to get that first PhD in computational engineering from Mississippi State. Can I take credit for that? Can I take credit for walking in the halls? I can't feel like it was all me. I can feel like I had helped. So I came back, and so just to highlight a few things, worked with Dr. Jeff Holland on groundwater. That was fun. Started doing high-performance computing. That had remained fun. Worked with Brad Comis and John West and Bobby Hunter and Scotty Swilley and Dean Hampton, some of the people that come to mind, some of the people that are here. Somewhere in all that, this guy named Professor Howard Wilson showed me how to do some analytical solution. An analytical solution is a mathematical representation. If you got a hard problem, you got to do this big computer stuff. If you got an easy problem, maybe you might can derive an analytical or closed form or a mathematical solution. And I said, well, I might do a paper on that one day. And he laughed in my face. He said, Fred, they will never take that. And then it hit me one day, this groundwater modeling stuff for levees and the seep. Oh, I think I know how to do an analytical solution for that. I think I'll submit it to a journal. Might as well. Sometimes the journal people can be really mean to you. They are. They're tough. But it so happens they took it. Today, I still, from ResortGate or from ResearchGate, I get half a dozen or so emails a week says, Fred, we found more citations of your work in this paper. So that paper turned out to be okay. Can I take credit for that? I don't think so. So there's one more thing. I was told not to talk too long. And somebody asked me, Fred, how long are you going to talk? And I said, as long as I wanted to. So anybody is free to take a nap or just hit the road. It's okay. I got one more story. I was having a nice day, working on high-performance computing, doing cool stuff. And this lady called Dr. Maureen Corcoran says, Fred, I've got this problem, the effect of woody vegetation on levees. How about working on it? Whoa, I'm okay, I'm cool. How did I get in that? I don't know, I don't remember. But I did, and it was a fun project. But what else happened was she invited this guy, Dr. Thomas Brendan, down. This guy is really world famous. And we got to working together on this report that was mentioned. And he goes, Fred, this is going to be a report that's going to be cited for years to come. I didn't invite Professor Thomas Brandon. I just happened to be there. So another cool thing that is one of the reasons I can stand here today. She's talking about doing running and half marathons. And I go, I'm way too old for that. No, you can do it. Well, she got me going. We could do it by doing intervals. 45 seconds on, 45 seconds off. We did a boatload of half marathons and 10Ks and 5Ks and with medication. So I went into the doctor's office feeling pretty good. My blood pressure was 200 and something, over 100 something. My A1C for blood sugar was rising. And my cholesterol was terrible too. So it just came along at the right time for Maureen to get me going on the running. Why am I out there walking and running? To stay alive. Just saying. So, thank you a lot of people to be thankful for. I enjoyed the project. I enjoy working with Thomas Brandon, and I'm still enjoying the running. Okay, so one of the things, a couple more things. One of the things that I happen to see is that when you do unsaturated flow, transient unsaturated flow, there was a significant thing left out. When you apply the water on the levee, it makes the ground go down. So our computer model didn't take that into account. It's called the coupled problem of stress with water flow. And I go, oh, I can do that, and so managed to write a big old HPC program to do that. And then, with work developed by years by Dr. Martin Schultz, Environmental Lab, could apply it to levees. And so that was cool. And there's this Professor Farshid, up in Mississippi State. And Maureen goes, Fred, this guy needs some help. And so it turns out that particular program is exactly what was needed to predict what global warming would potentially do. And so it got to do a really nice piece of work using the stuff that I just, quote, happened to have in my pocket. Now I thought, what am I going to do after this? Well, I was laying in bed at 2 o'clock, as happens a lot. And I go, oh, I know how to do an analytical solution for the coupled problem. Oh, why don't I write that up? But it turns out that Professor Farshid was very knowledgeable on analytical solutions. He knew all about this stuff. He even showed me a place where they had a whole journal on analytical solutions for geotechnical engineering. Whoa. So we're working on this new stuff. So, was it just an accident that this professor happened to call Maureen and happened to need some help and happened to be an expert on this stuff where I'm still getting citations to this day? So I'm having a nice day. I'm working on this new and improved and more papers on analytical solutions. Being emeritus, I can watch the ball game if I want to. I can take a nap if I want to. I can go walk around if I want to. So, all I know how to say it is this. How did I come from being that kid with only one hand and almost blind, who's known primarily for walking along the fence, to this award? Thank you, God. That's all I know how to say it. For my special blessings. And thank you all so much. I am deeply stunned and honored by this award.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our gallery induction for this afternoon. Please join me in another round of applause for our inductees. Thank you so much for your attendance and have a wonderful afternoon.